The instant I spotted my garage door gaping open, a folding table jutting halfway out, and a banner proclaiming Pinewood Quarterly Wine and Strategy Summit dangling lopsidedly above it, two thoughts hit me like a freight train. First, I hadn't given a soul permission to step foot in my garage. Second, the universe had just dropped the dumbest criminals I'd ever encounter right into my lap. There they were, sipping Merlot not 5 feet from piles of unfiled receipts, doctored invoices, and a massage chair tagged as office equipment. I hadn't even unpacked my kitchen yet, and already I was sitting on a goldmine of tax violations that could make a shady accountant twitch. The kicker? They had no clue who I was. To them, I was just some soft-spoken newcomer with a friendly grin and no backbone. They were about to find out I hunted fraud for a leave-wine, and I never let theft slide, especially when it was practically gift-wrapped in my own garage. It had been just 4 days since I'd moved into Pinewood Grove, a neighborhood where the sidewalks sparkled, the lawns were trimmed with military precision, and the smiles felt a little too rehearsed. I'd landed a gig as a lead tax examiner with the State Department of Revenue, and after years of bouncing between apartments and leave-wying out of MO-vying boxes, I figured this house might finally feel like home. Quiet. Simple. Maybe a few low-key barbecues with neighbors who didn't pry too much. When folks asked about my job, I kept it vague. State administration, I'd say, brushing off the welcome baskets and glossy HOA rulebooks thrust at me by nosy residents. Then came Lisa. She didn't just introduce herself, she grilled me about my mailbox placement and whether I'd repaint my shutters to match the community vibe. Decked out in oversized sunglasses and wielding a clipboard like a scepter, she declared, "We keep things tight around here," as if she'd single-handedly sculpted Pinewood into her personal utopia. I nodded, gave her nothing, and watched. My job had taught me to listen more than I speak, and Lisa was already spilling plenty her control freak energy, her entitlement, and her assumption she could bulldoze anyone without pushback. The first warning sign popped up when I noticed a shiny new padlock on my garage door. I'd installed my own lock the night before, and now it was gone. My code didn't work. My spare key was useless. Puzzled, I peeked through the side window and nearly choked. Folding tables were strewn with papers, HOA letterheads, wine crates stacked like a fortress, and a filing cabinet shoved in the corner. My garage had morphed into Pinewood's HOA headquarters. Lisa materialized behind me like a cartoon villain, all fake innocence. "Oh, I meant to leave a note," she chirped, not even pretending to care. "The last owner let us use it for storage. It's tradition." She flashed a grin, expecting me to roll over and play nice. I told her I hadn't signed up for this, and her smile tightened like a coiled spring. "We figured you'd be a team player," she said. "I've seen every trick, gaslighting, dodging blame, but there's something extra brazen about breaking into someone's property and acting offended when they call you out." I didn't argue. I just said I'd look into it, which, in my world, means I'm about to dismantle your life. That night, as I scrolled through work emails, a new assignment pinged in my inbox. I almost laughed when I saw it. Pinewood Grove HOA audit assignment confirmed. The state had randomly tasked me with auditing the very HOA that had hijacked my garage and was storing what looked like a decade's worth of shady financials in it. If I believed in fate, this was it. The next morning, I started gathering intel, snapping photos through the window, jotting down equipment serial numbers, cataloging anything legible without stepping inside. I wanted them to stay cocky, thinking I was some pushover neighbor. The sloppier they got, the easier my job would be. That afternoon, Lisa texted me without my consent, of course inviting me to the Pinewood Summer Sip event on my own front lawn. She'd volunteered my property for their welcome bash. "Great way to meet everyone," she wrote, piling on clapping emojis. I shot back a thumbs up and marked my calendar. Let them dig their own grave. The next morning, sipping coffee, I watched HOA volunteers plug into my outlets and deck my bushes with tacky plastic sunflowers. I couldn't decide whether to laugh or cheer. I'd seen this before, people treating rules like optional footnotes and public funds like their personal A-team, but never delivered so perfectly to my doorstep. Public records showed Lisa signing off on everything from community enhancement, fees that paid for Lav YSH lunches, to fake landscaping bills tied to her cousin's company. It was all there, nestled between wine bottles and a punch bowl marked "board only." She waved at me from across the lawn during their little party, mouthing, "So glad you're here." I smiled back and started typing my preliminary audit report. They had no idea who they'd messed with, but they'd regret touching my garage. By the time their wine-fueled lawn party wrapped up, I had enough to proceed. I waited until the last balloon popped and Lisa's posse shuffled home with my pilfered Pinot before locking my door and firing up my laptop. This wasn't just a nuisance, Anna Marie, it was a chance to topple a petty empire built on arrogance and ignorance. Normally, audits take weeks to kick off, but with Pinewood already on my desk and EVY denke of tampering in my garage, I flagged it as urgent. Public filings were a treasure trove, quarterly statements, annual expense reports, and reimbursement claims so creative they'd make a fiction writer blush. A Dula 2700 wellness seminar was a spa getaway for Lisa and her cronies. A Dula 4000 seasonal decor charge covered 3 inflatable snowmen and maybe a karaoke machine. They weren't just careless, they were fearless, as if their wealth and loud voices made them untouchable. Until now. 3 days later, I sent the official audit notice to Pinewood's listed address and called Lisa myself. I gave her the full rundown: name, department, badge number, purpose. The silence was deafening, her fake cheer cracking. "There must be a mistake," she squeaked. "Why would the state audit our little HOA?" I kept it simple, random pick, plus a property use complaint. Routine stuff. She bounced back fast, I'll give her that. "We're so organized, super transparent." "It'll be quick." "Agreed," I said. "It will." That afternoon, an emergency board meeting was called. Flyers hit mailboxes, and a group chat I never joined erupted with "Stay calm and clean the files." I watched from my porch as Lisa and 2 lackeys hauled crates from my garage, sweating and hissing at each other. Too Tide already photographed, scanned, and uploaded everything to the audit portal. They were rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. 2 days later, I hit the HOA's office, a glorified closet behind the community center. Lisa, in a pencil skirt and pearls, offered me coffee I didn't take and pointed to binders bursting with nerves. "Everything's here," she said, like it was a grand reveal. It took minutes to spot the gaps, expenses, and the binders missing from digital filings, reimbursements with no receipts, a maintenance Q3 folder stuffed with sushi menus. "A Dula 684 team lunch?" I asked. "We discussed sprinklers," she giggled, too loud. I said nothing and kept digging. By the end, I'd flagged enough to escalate it from a routine check to a full-blown misconduct case. Lisa still didn't get it, tossing snarky jabs about bureaucrats and pushing cupcakes at me. "Ever tried managing picky homeowners?" she whined. "Less stressful when you're not stealing," I replied, eyes on my tablet. That night, strolling through Pinewood's eerie calm, families watering lawns, joggers nodding, I couldn't wait to show them what their HOA had been hiding. Then came the anonymous envelope under my door, photocopied receipts, and a note. "Check the landscaping contracts, fake names. No work." I knew the handwriting. Edna, the elderly widow down the street who'd once handed me cookies and muttered that Lisa ran this place like a dictator. The contracts led to a non-existent address and a shell company tied to Lisa's husband. That was it. I froze Pinewood's accounts and sent formal notice. An hour later, Lisa stormed my walkway, sunglasses skewed, yelling about harassment. I stayed cool. "You broke into my garage, stored fraud there, filed fake expenses. This is justice." She stomped off, threatening lawsuits. I smiled. She had no idea what was coming.